Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Steven's going to be teaching you two beautiful pieces from Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker. Now those two pieces are the March and Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. And I've got to say that this arrangement, we had the idea to do it as a medley. So you guys are going to be learning some of the most memorable parts from both of these pieces and mashing it up together. Now, if you are a fan of The Nutcracker, we actually do have another lesson on Waltz of the Flowers, and if you want to check it out, you can do so by clicking this link. I'll also link it in the description box below, but let's take a step back and let's talk about this lesson. So I got a chance to play through this entire arrangement. I've got to say that it's going to be best suited for the seasoned intermediate budding advanced player. So what makes it a little bit challenging is that there is a lot of movement throughout this piece. So you've got jumping up and down for that first march part, and then when you get into Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, it has quite a bit of chord work, and they're not the typical cowboy chord shapes that you kind of learn on day one of playing ukulele. So it's going to be a little bit more challenging in that regard. So let's talk a little bit about this lesson. Now, Steven's going to be teaching you how to play the entire arrangement in this video, but if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for this song. Now, also on that page, you can find the on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish, just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Steven to teach you how to play this, and then I'll catch you at the end of the video.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this lesson on a medley of two excerpts from the Nutcracker ballet. In the first half of the lesson we're going to learn the Nutcracker March, and then in the second half of the lesson we're going to learn the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. Just two incredibly cool, iconic pieces of music that instantly make me think of Christmas. So both pieces are just in 4/4 time, so we have our 4 quarter notes to the bar. The first piece, the Nutcracker March, the rhythm is a little bit unconventional. And although I am going to explain the rhythm in the lesson, I think the piece is just so kind of catchy and so well known that you could probably just play it by ear, to be honest with you. So once we get to that part of the lesson, feel free just to ignore me rambling on about the rhythm and just kind of play it how it sounds in your head. And then when we get to the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, the rhythm for that one is a bit more straightforward, but again, it's such a well-known piece, so iconic, that I think you could probably just play that one by ear as well. Like, who doesn't know that tune? So the last thing just to mention is that this arrangement is for low G. If you were to separate these two pieces though, the first piece, the Nutcracker March, could definitely be played high G, but when we get to the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, that does need that low G string. Okay, so if you're ready to go, grab yourself one of these things and let's get into it. So we'll start on the A section, the Nutcracker March, so measures 1 and 2 should sound like this. Okay, so if we look at measure 1, we're starting on this G chord. So we've got the A string at the 5th with the first finger, and then the C string at the 7th with the second finger, E string 7th with the third finger. So we're going to play that chord on beat 1. Okay, but here we don't want to hear this low G string, because if we kind of hear the low G string over this measure, it just kind of drones and drowns out the melody. It just doesn't sound good. So ideally, so we can strum these strings, we want to kind of mute that G string, probably with this second finger, which is holding the C string. Okay, so when you're fretting this G chord, if you just have it so that the tip of the finger is just touching the G string, it's not fretting it, it's not putting pressure on it, it's just touching the underside of the string so that it's muted, so we don't hear it. So we can strum that chord, but without hearing that G string. Careful when you do that though, don't kind of put it on and then think, all right, I need to get it up to the G string, so I'll just move the finger up, because if you bend that string, it sounds horrible. So get your finger in position so that rather than the tip of the finger is on the C string, use more the base of the finger so that the tip of the finger can just be touching that G string. Okay, if you've got the kind of tiny fingers and that doesn't work, or you can't manage to mute that G string, you could just try strumming carefully so you miss that G string, or you could even pick these strings. To be honest, you don't have to strum them, they could be picked. But either way, we want to avoid that G string. So beat 1 is just that chord there, the G. And then we'll come back to the rhythm of this in a minute, but basically on beat 2, we're going to play a triplet. So we're going to play that same chord again 3 times. And again, we'll talk about ways in which you could play that in a little bit, but we'll just go through the kind of the notes of the measure first of all. So beat 2 is that 2 triplets 3 times on that chord. Then on beat 3, we're going to keep that chord held, but we're going to put the pinky on now to the A string at the 7th. And play through that and strum that chord on beat 3, and then on beat 4 we just hit that same chord again. Okay, so that's just that measure 1 once again. Okay, now I played around with how to play this in terms of the strumming pattern, and there's no real right or wrong. I mean, there isn't right or wrong anyway when you're playing music, but there's no kind of better way or preferred way. You could, because beat 2 is this triplet, use a triple strum. That kind of would make sense. So if you go down on beat 1, and then for this 2 triplet, then beat 2 is a down strum with the index, and then the tri is the thumb following with the down strum, and then the plut at the end is an up strum with the index. So 2 triplets. 2 triplets played at speed. Okay, 1, 2 triplets. Bit slower. 1, 2 triplets. Okay. Or there you could just do a down, up, down. I think that sounds quite good as well. Doesn't really matter. 1, 2 triplets. Okay. Probably go with the triple strum just because it would be the right thing to do there. If you're good at triple strums, you could use this as an opportunity to practice that. But up, down, up works as well. Like I said before, you could even just pick the strings. Doesn't really matter how you do it. Your interpretation, whatever works best for you or is most comfortable for you there, I think is absolutely fine. Okay, and then beat 3, probably go with a down strum, and then beat 4 could be another down strum or an up strum. Again, it doesn't really matter. Whatever works for you and whatever you think sounds best. And then into measure 2, all we're going to do is use the pinky to get the next note. So we're holding this shape at the end of measure 1. We're going to keep that held, but the pinky is going to move up just to the 9th fret, and we're just going to play that chord now on beat 1. So it's still just this G chord, we're just moving that melody note up to the A string 9th. And then beat 2, we want the A string at the 5th now, so the pinky will come off, and that first finger's still on there on the A string at the 5th. So when the pinky comes off, we're just playing that G chord again on beat 2. And then on beat 3, pinky goes on to the 7th fret where it was earlier to finish that measure off there on beat 3. That then just rings for the rest of that measure. Okay, so measures 1 and 2 once again. And then measures 3 and 4 are just the same. We just play those 2 again. So let's have a go at playing all 4 measures there, just measure 1 and 2 twice basically, but we'll have a go at playing those 4 measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. So on to measures 5 and 6, they should sound like this. Okay, so fun little measures to play, but rhythmically they're a little bit cheeky. Hopefully you can just kind of go with the, if you can sing it, you can play it approach for these and kind of just play it by feel and play it by ear. If we think about the actual rhythm, sort of from what it is from a musical point of view, what we're playing for all these measures in this little section is 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a. So we're essentially playing on each beat, but then also the little 16th note just before the next beat. So if we imagine each beat split into 16th notes, so if we had 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. What we're doing is playing on the beat, and then the a at the end of each beat before going straight into the next one. So if I play that measure 5 through once again, but play it really slowly and count those 16th notes, we would have 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, so when we're playing this at tempo, that's impossible to count really. We're not going to count these 16th notes in our head, but understanding the rhythm is just a good way to start, even if you can play it by ear and play it by feel. So a little bit faster, we would have 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a. Okay, so what we're doing there on beat 1 is the A string at the 3rd fret, so we'll use the first finger for that. Pick that on beat 1. And then the next 2 notes, we're going to do the A string 5th, but then pull it off back onto that A string 3rd. So the 3rd finger will take the A string 5th, and then once you've played it, keep the 1st finger on. So when you pick it, we can just pull it off onto that A string 3rd. And that's A2 from a rhythmic point of view. Then the next 2 notes, A3, are going to be the A string 2nd. So just move that 1st finger down, pick that, and then pull it off onto the A string open. And then the next 2 notes, we're going to go E string 3rd, pulled off onto the E string 2nd. So we'll use the 2nd finger on the E string 3rd. 1st finger goes on behind, ready to receive that pull off. Okay, and that's A4. And then the last note is just the C string at the 2nd, and we'll use the 2nd finger for that. Okay, so that measure played a bit slower. Then if we take that into measure 6, we've got the same rhythm once again, the same pattern, but different notes. So we're going to do the A string 2nd on beat 1. So we'll use the 3rd finger for that, but take the 2nd finger off after you've played it, kind of staccato note there, because we don't want that ringing necessarily into the next measure. So quick short, play it, take the pressure off, and then measure 6 into that A string 2nd. Then we're going to do the 3rd fret pulled off onto that 2nd fret. So the next 2 notes are going to be A string 3rd, pinky takes that, and then pick it and pull it off onto the 2nd fret. Then the next 2 notes is going to be the open A, so 3rd finger comes off, pick that open A string, put the 2nd finger onto the E string 3rd for that pair of notes. Then the next 2 notes are going to be E string 2nd, so the 1st finger will take that, 2nd finger comes off, pick that and then pull it off onto the open E. Okay, and then finish off with the E string 3rd, 2nd finger will take that. So just that measure 6. Brill. So with measure 5, okay, my finger in there was a bit different to how I showed you, so we'll try that again. Okay, and again, that finger in with the left hand is just kind of how I play it and how I think it flows quite nicely, but you might find a different way of playing that you're quite happy with. Okay, so just for these pull-offs, just one little tip I can give you there. Just again, a technique that I found that works quite well. Because we're doing quite a lot of pull-offs, and to control them and have them snapping quite nicely, what I tend to do is use kind of this knuckle here, basically, at the start of my index finger. I'll rest the neck on that knuckle, kind of at the nut, and then keep it kind of on there, and use that like as almost like a pivot point for the pull-offs. So when I'm kind of pulling off 2nd finger onto the 1st finger, for example, I'll use that pivot point to kind of twist the hand. And it just helps get a kind of nice snappy pull-off rather than trying to do it. That still works, it's fine. But I find that little kind of pivot point there just helps control the fingers as well. I can get smaller movements because I'm using that pivot rather than just my fingers. So you could try that as a little tip for you. Give that a go if that helps. I mean, if you're happy with how you do pull-offs, that's fine. Just ignore me. I'm just waffling on here. So either way, let's have a go at playing those measures 5 and 6 through together now. 2, 3, 4. So on to measures 7 and 8 now. They should sound like this. Okay, so we've got the same kind of rhythm going on there. There's 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a. It changes a bit at the end of measure 8 there, but we'll look at that in a moment when we get to it. But this measure 7 is the same rhythmically as those previous 2 measures. So the first note is this E string at the second. I picked it when I played it for you there, but actually we will be playing that with a pull off. So the last note of measure 6, that a right at the end of measure 6, we played E string third. Second finger was on there. So this first note of measure 7 is just that pull off onto E string second. Then the next 2 notes we have is E string open followed by C string third. So take the first finger off, pick that open E, and then use the second finger to play the C string third. Okay, when we play the next note, the A string open, we don't want that C string note ringing over that A string. So as we play the A string open, take that second finger off, and then use that second finger to play the E string third on the next note there. Okay, and then the next pair of notes is going to be E string second. So the first finger will take that, second finger comes off, pick that E string second, but then pull it off onto the open E. And then the last note in this measure is A string second. So we'll use that first finger to pick that note. So just that measure again, quite slowly. I'll pick that first note, even though we're pulling off onto it when we play it all together, but I'll pick it for now. Nice, and then into measure 8, we're going to hammer up to that A string at the 3rd fret. So we're not picking that first note, we're going to hammer up with the second finger onto that A string 3rd, and then we're going to go back to that A string 2nd. So keep the first finger on when we do the hammer up, because now we're going to take that finger off and then play the A string 2nd and pull off onto the A string open. Okay, then the next 2 notes, A3, are going to be E string 3rd. So first finger will take that, and then we're going to go to the A string 5th, pinky will take that on beat 3. And this is where this kind of 1, a 2, a 3 rhythm changes, because we're going to play that note on beat 3, but let that ring for a full beat now, before then go into the C string 2nd on beat 4, which we'll play with the first finger. Okay, so that last measure there, measure 8, if I pick that first note, even though we're hammering up to it when we play it all together, but I'll pick it for now. So it's measure 8. So 1, a 2, a 3, 4. Okay, so there's 2 measures once again. Nope, those 2 measures once again. Nice. So let's have a go at playing those 2 measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. So the next 4 measures now, measures 9 through to 12, they're just a repeat of the first 4 measures that we looked at. So we won't go over those again because we know those already. But I just want to mention the last note we played at the end of measure 8, because the D note, which on the tab is C string 2nd, that's the same note as G string 7th. That's a D note as well. So it's the same note. On the tab, it says to play C string 2nd, but we could instead use that G string at the 7th. Have a play with both and see which you prefer in terms of transition from that note back into this G chord for the start of measure 9. Because I tried it both ways and I don't know, I haven't really worked out which way is best or what I prefer. So if I play that measure 8 and play the 2 different versions of that last note, you can see kind of what I mean by that. So that measure 8 into that G chord of measure 9, we would have. And that is quite a jump to get from there to there. The first finger's got to come over onto the A string at the 5th. Those fingers have got to go on. Okay, so instead, you could go for the G string 7th on that last note of measure 8. And we're kind of in position there, ready for that G chord. You've still got to jump that finger over and get the G chord on. And it's not particularly easy either way, really. But as I say, I couldn't work out which I preferred. So have a little play with both and just decide which works best for you. So we'll go into measures 13 and 14 now, so they should sound like this. Okay, so the first measure, measure 13, is mostly just the same as measure 5 until the last note. So we've seen this bit before. But now the last note, the A, at the end of this measure, we're going to play the open A now instead of that C string at the second. So that's the last note of this measure. And then into measure 14, we're going to hammer onto the A string at the 5th fret. So we've just played the A string at the end of measure 13. That hammer on there with the first finger to the 5th fret is the first note of this measure 14. So the next pair of notes is going to be the A string 7th and then pull off onto that 5th. So the third finger goes onto the 7th, but keep the first finger on. So we can pull back off onto it on that next note. Then we're going to go to the E string at the 8th, and you could use either the 3rd or 4th fingers for this. I tend to stretch the 3rd up because I find it more comfortable for some reason, and pick the E string at the 8th with the 3rd finger, and then pull off onto the 2nd finger on the 7th fret. But you could go pinky onto 3rd or 3rd onto 2nd, whatever you prefer there. Have a play with both ways. Again, there's no right and wrong, it's just whatever your fingers prefer. Okay, so the first part of that measure. Okay, then we're going to go to the E string 5th, so first finger will take that, and then C string 7th, second finger will take that, and then finish off this measure with E string 7th, so the third finger will take that. First finger can come off as we pick that note. So just that measure 14 again, and I'll pick that first note even though it would be a hammer on normally. Okay, and then with the first measure, measure 13. Nice. So let's have a go at playing those two measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. On to measures 15 and 16 now, they should sound like this. Okay, so rhythmically, these are just the same as measures 7 and 8, so we're playing 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 1, a 2, a 3, 4. So back to measure 15, the beginning of this is the A string at the 7th. We'll use the pinky for that because these two fingers were involved in the previous measure, but when we come into measure 15, all other fingers will come off and we'll just have the pinky on the A string 7th. So we'll pick that on beat 1. And then the next two notes are the A string 5th, so the first finger will take that, pinky comes off, followed quickly by the E string 8th, which I'd use the third finger for. And then we're going to shift the hand up 2 frets because we're going to go to the A string 7th now, so the first finger will come up, but we'll move the hand up because now we need the A string 9th, so the third finger will take that. Okay, keep the first finger on though because now we're going back to that A string 7th. Followed by E string 10th, so again I'd use the third finger for that, and then finish off this measure with A string 9th, which we'll use the second finger for. First and third can come off as we put that second finger on for the end of that measure. So just that measure 15 once again. Okay, then into measure 16, the first note is going to be a hammer on to the 10th fret on that A string. So we've just played the A string 9th at the end of measure 15. So hammer it up with the third finger for beat 1 of measure 16. Then keep the second finger on behind though because we're going to pick that now and then pull off onto the 7th fret for beat 2. So first finger will go on to receive that pull off like that. Then back up to the 9th with the second finger, followed by 10th with the third finger, and then G string open on beat 4 to finish off. So just those two measures again. Brilliant. So let's have a go at playing those two measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. onto the B section now, the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. This follows on really nicely from that previous section we just looked at. Obviously they're both from the same ballet, but we're still in 4/4 time and we're still in the same key of G, so it just works really well as a medley putting these two pieces together. So the first two measures of this section, measures 17 and 18, should sound like this. Really cool, really iconic sound that, isn't it? You know what's coming after that. So beat 1 is just this open E, and we're just playing all quarter notes here. We're just playing every beat on the beat for these two measures, so nice and straightforward rhythmically. So beat 1, like I say, is this open E string. So we'll pick it, but you probably heard from that little playthrough that I just did that all these notes are played quite staccato. They don't ring and sustain, it's the opposite. They're played for a really short duration. Yeah, that ringing sound is cut short on purpose to give that sound, to give that effect. So to achieve that, what we'll do, once we've played the open E, we'll put the picking finger just back onto that string straight afterwards. So pick it, but then put the pad of the finger back on it just to mute it and stop it from ringing. But on beat 2, we're going to play the 3 strings together, the A, the E and the C. So when you put the middle finger back onto the E string, I would put the other 2 fingers on as well. So once you've picked the E, take all 3 fingers, A, and index, middle and ring finger, and put all 3 of them onto the strings, the A, the E and the C. So then on beat 2, we can play those 3 strings of this E minor chord. So bar across the 7th fret, not the G string though, so just a 3/4 bar across the A, the E and the C strings. I use the 3rd finger for that. It probably makes more sense to use the 1st finger because we usually do bars with the 1st finger, but for some reason I go with the 3rd finger. But when you're practicing this, try both, and whatever you prefer, just use whichever finger you want to go for. But either way, beat 2 is that bar across the 7th fret, so pick all 3 strings together. But then again, to get that staccato sound now, I would use the fretting finger now to achieve this by just taking the pressure off the bar once you've picked the strings. So just let the pressure come up, just to cut the notes from ringing. And we'll take that finger off because we're going to go to the open E again on beat 3. So same thing, pick it, but then put all 3 fingers back on because we're going to play those 3 strings again, but this time in the form of a diminished 7 shape, an A diminished 7 on beat 4. So that's going to be the A string at the 9th, the E string at the 8th with the 1st finger, and C string 9th with the 2nd finger. Pick all 3 strings, but then again, just take the pressure off these fingers once you've played it to get that staccato sound. So just that measure 17. Nice. Then we're going to follow that same pattern into measure 18. Got these 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, doing the same thing, alternating between an E chord open, E note open, and then one of these diminished chords. So beat 1 of measure 18 is that E string open, so fingers come off, pick it, fingers go back on, and then we're going to move that diminished 7 chord up just 1 fret to the 10th, pick those 3 strings again, take the pressure off for that staccato sound, and then move the hand down as we're playing this E string on beat 3, because then on beat 4 we want to be at the 6th fret with that same shape. It's just another diminished 7 shape, but down at the 6th fret now it's an F sharp diminished 7, so we'll just pick that on beat 4 and again take that pressure off for that staccato sound. And then into measures 19 and 20 we just repeat that, we play it again. Okay, so let's have a go at playing those 4 measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. So on to measures 21 and 22, they should sound like this. So cool, I love this piece, it sounds really good on ukulele as well. So what we're going to do here is play the rhythm 1, 2 and 3, 4, and then into measure 22, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so measure 21 is that open E string again, and then mute it with that picking finger to get that staccato sound. But then on beat 2, we're going to go to this double stop of E string at the 7th, which we'll use the first finger for, but we'll do a 3/4 bar across the A, E and C strings because we'll need that shortly. So pinky will take the A string at the 10th, and we'll play that A string at the 10th just with the E string for now. The C string will leave because we'll come to that shortly. So beat 2, pick that double stop, but then on the and after beat 2, we're going to come to the C string at 7th now, take the pinky off because we're going to play that C string with the A string at the 7th. So 2 strings together on the and after beat 2. Okay, and then beat 3 is just the same as beat 2, got that double stop, so pinky goes back on, A string 10th, E string 7th. That's beat 3, and then beat 4, we're going to bring the pinky down a fret to the 9th. The first finger is going to come off the bar and just come and fret the E string at the 5th, single note there, and pick that on beat 4. So just that measure 21. Okay, so the first note on beat 1, that E string, will have that staccato, but then the 2 and, we'll not worry about making those staccato, we'll just let those ring when we play them. But when we play beat 3, we'll make that one staccato, so when we play that double stop, take the pressure off all these fingers, and then beat 4, we'll make that one staccato as well. So again, just take the fingers off once you've played it. Okay, brill. And then into measure 22, we're just going back to one of these diminished 7 shapes. We're at the 6th fret now, so it's an A diminished 7. So we'll pick that on beat 1. And then on beat 2, we just move it up a fret to the 7th. So keep all the fingers on and just shift it up and play that on beat 2 again. Staccato sound there. And then on beats 3 and 4, we're just going to move it down 2 frets to the 5th fret and play 3 and 4. But I'd probably not have them all staccato. I'd probably let 3 and ring. And then on beat 4, make that one staccato. Rather than, I think that can sound a bit messy. So if we have the first 2 beats staccato and then the last beat staccato. So we would have 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so with measure 21, okay, actually when I play that, thinking about it, that beat 1 of measure 22, maybe not have that one staccato, that one could ring. But again, a little bit sort of creative interpretation, you go with whatever you think sounds best. But normally I would play that beat 1 of measure 22 and let that ring into beat 2 and have beat 2 staccato. So once again, brill. So let's have a go at playing those 2 measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. On to measures 23 and 24, they should sound like this. Okay, so measure 23, we're just playing the rhythm 1 and 2, 3 and 4. And it's quite straightforward because we're just moving this diminished 7 shape down the neck a little bit more. So at the end of measure 22, we were playing this diminished 7 chord at the 5th fret. So all I'm going to do is move it down a fret to the 4th fret and then play that 3 times on beats 1 and 2. And I'd probably play it, let it ring for the first 2 times, so 1 and then on beat 2, hit that one staccato by taking the pressure off the strings. So 1 and 2, like that. And then for the next half of the measure, 3 and 4, we just do the same thing, but down a fret to the 3rd fret now. And again, that last one on beat 4 staccato. So just that measure. Brill. And then into measure 24, we've got a bit of a trickier rhythm here. We're playing 1 and 2 and 3, 4 E under. So a little run of 16th notes there at the end, which is a little bit tricky, but we'll look at that in a moment. So beat 1 of this measure 24, we're coming up to the 7th fret and we're going to bar across like we did before 3 strings, the A, the E and the C, 3/4 bar across those. And we'll play on beat 1, just a double stop of the E string and the C string, so ignore the A string for now. Just that double stop there. Then we'll play the A string on the and after beat 1. So just pick that single note with the ring finger. And then on beat 2, keep the bar on, but we're going to turn this into an A minor chord by putting these 2 fingers on. The second finger, we'll take the E string at the 8th, and then the third finger, we'll take the C string at the 9th. And again, just that double stop of E string and C string on beat 2. And then the and after beat 2, we're going to hit that A string at the 7th again, which is why we kept this bar on. So we'll hit that A string there. Then on beat 3, those 2 fingers that we put on to make it into an A minor chord, take those back off so it's just the bar, and hit that double stop of E string 7th and C string 7th. And that's on beat 3. So just that first bit, 1 and 2 and 3. And again, I'd probably have that beat 3 staccato, but everything else before that allowed to ring. Nice. And then this last little bit, that beat 3, that rings for a full beat. And then on beat 4, we're going to do this little run of 16th notes, 4, E and A, of E string open, followed by C string at the 2nd fret. We'll use the first finger for that. And then pull it off onto the open C, and then finish off with the G string at the 4th fret, which I tend to use a 2nd finger for. And then when we get to the next measure, which we'll look at in a moment, that's going to go down to the 3rd fret. So G string 3rd will be the first note of the next measure, which completes that little run. Okay, so the last note there, that isn't this measure, that's coming next, but it makes sense just to add that in because it completes, as I say, this little 16th note run. So another way of doing that, you could do, instead of the 2nd finger on the 4th fret and sliding it down to the 3rd, you could put the 3rd finger on and pull off onto the 2nd finger. Either way works. I like the little slide way for some reason. I just prefer that. It works better for me. But again, alternatives. Slide it down, or 3rd finger, pull off onto the 2nd. Whatever you prefer, again, you go with whatever works best for you. So those 2 measures, 23 and 24, once again. Brilliant. But that last note there, remember, isn't part of this measure. That's part of the next one. So let's try playing those 2 measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. On to measures 25 and 26, they should sound like this. Okay, so measure 25, we're playing the rhythm here, 1, 2 and 3, 4. And beat 1 is this G string at the 3rd fret, but we're not picking that on beat 1 because we've achieved that with either a slide down from the 4th fret or a pull off from the 4th there. So that first note, G string at the 3rd, is beat 1. Then on beat 2, we're going to play the E string at the 3rd with the C string open, but I'll probably take that finger off as we play this so that it doesn't ring over these notes. So E string 3rd with the 3rd finger, C string open, double stop there. That's beat 2. Then the and after beat 2, just pull that finger off onto the open E, and then put it back on for beat 3 to play that E string at the 3rd once again. And then on beat 4, we're going to go to this part of an A diminished 7 chord, but for now we only need the E string at the 2nd, so the 1st finger will take that. And then we need the C string at the 3rd fret, so the 2nd finger will take that. So double stop there on beat 4 of the E string and C string together. So just that measure 25. Brill. Then into measure 26, we're playing the rhythm 1, 2, 3 and 4. So beat 1 is now this double stop of A string at the 3rd with E string 2nd. So keep this shape on. We'll add this 3rd finger on to the A string at the 3rd to complete this A diminished 7 chord, and then pick the A string with the E string. So that double stop on beat 1. And then we'll make that a staccato once when we play that. take the pressure off to get that staccato sound. And then on beat 2, we're coming up to the 7th fret and doing one of those 3/4 bars again across the A, the E and the C string. So first finger goes on and then hit that double stop of E string and C string on beat 2, and again we'll make that a staccato 1. And then on beat 3 we're going to play the A string at the 10th with the pinky, with the E string at the 9th with the 3rd finger. So double stop there, and then play that again on the and after beat 3, and then on beat 4 hit it again, but this time staccato. So take the pressure off as you play it on beat 4. So on beat 3 and the and after beat 3, let it ring, and then on beat 4 staccato by taking the pressure off. So there's measures 25 and 26 again. Brill. So let's have a go at playing those 2 measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. So measures 27 and 28 should sound like this. Okay, so measure 27, we're playing the rhythm 1 and 2, 3 and 4. We're starting on this double stop of A string 9th and E string 10th. But if we think where we were at the end of the previous measure, measure 26, we were playing this double stop here with the pinky on. So all we're going to do into measure 27, we're going to take the pinky off, we're going to move the 3rd finger up 1 fret and put the 2nd finger on to the A string 9th, and then play that on beat 1, then again on the and after beat 1, and then a 3rd time on beat 2, but on beat 2, give it that staccato sound. So 1 and the and after beat 1, let it ring, then on beat 2, staccato. And then on beat 3, we're going to come down to this 1st finger bar across the 6th fret, but keep the 2nd finger on because that can just come down to the 7th fret, and then the 1st finger bar goes across the full 6th fret, and we play all 4 strings together on beat 3. Then the and after beat 3, we just hit the double stop of the top 2 strings, the A and the E string. And then on beat 4, we hit them again, that double stop, but this time make that one staccato. Okay, so with the first part of that measure, nice. And then into measure 28, we're going to play the rhythm 1 and 2 and 3, 4 E and A. So rhythmically, this is the same as measure 24. In fact, these 4 measures we've just looked at just follow the same rhythmic pattern as the previous 4 measures, just different notes obviously. So measure 28, we are keeping the 6th fret bar on there, and we're going to put the 2nd finger over onto the 7th fret of the E string and have the A string at the 6th as part of our bar. So play that double stop on beat 1, and then on the and after beat 1, we're going to go up to the 9th fret on the A string, so pinky will take that, but leave this on as we do that. Just pick that single note on the and after beat 1, and then on beat 2, we're going to come to this F#7 chord. So we'll keep the bar on, but the 2nd finger will go back over onto the A string at the 7th, pinky comes off, and then we play that A string at the 7th with the E string 6th as part of the bar. So play that, and then we're going to go to the 9th fret again on the and after beat 2, so again pinky will take that, but then we're going back to that B chord, so the 2nd finger will just hop across again, back onto that E string at the 7th, pinky comes off. Okay, so with the bar on, we basically just use the 2nd finger to change those chords from the B to the F#7. 2nd finger goes across, then it goes back again to the E string. There. Okay, that's beat 3. So 1 and 2 and 3. A ring for a beat. Then on beat 4, we've got this little 16th note run of 4 E and A, and that will end on the 1st note of the next measure, which is just the open E. Okay, so to do that one, we'll do the 1st finger on the A string at the 2nd, and that's on beat 4. Then pull that off onto the open A. Then 2nd finger will take E string at the 3rd, and then pull off onto the 2nd fret, so 1st finger's on there behind, ready to receive that pull off, and then that's the end of that measure. But to complete that little run, we'll play at the start of the next measure, the open E. Okay, but remember that last note is the next measure. So once again, those two measures together, 27 and 28. But again, that last note, next measure. Okay, let's have a go at playing those two measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. So the next four measures now, measures 29 through to 32, are basically just a repeat of measures 21 to 24, just until the very end where we have that little run of 16th notes. That's different this time round compared to the first time, but the first part of it is just the same. Up to that point there. So that was beat 3 of measure 32. This last little run of 16th notes, 4 E under. This is now different. So what that is on beat 4 is the E string at the 3rd fret, and we'll play that with the 2nd finger, and then pull that off onto the 2nd fret. So the first finger's on there behind, ready to receive that pull off, and then that finger pulls off again onto the open E. So we just pick it once and then do 2 pull offs. Okay, 4 E and then the A at the end of this measure is just a C string at the 2nd, which we'll play with the 2nd finger. Okay. And then that will complete that little run into measure 33. Beat 1 of measure 33 will be another pull off onto the C string at the 1st. So the 1st finger goes on behind the 2nd finger, ready to receive that pull off there. So if we play that little run with that 1st note of measure 33, that's what we're going for. And they're tricky, these little runs of 16th notes. And when we play this at tempo, they are quite quick, they're quite fast, and it's difficult to get them smooth and get each note kind of consecutive and flowing quite nicely. So I would even consider just practicing those little sections on their own, you know, as part of like your independent practice, not even as part of the song. Just pick your uke up and have a go at playing just those runs, just to practice them from time to time. So like the one at the end of measure 24. We can just practice playing them on their own. Then the one at the end of 28. Because they're all different from each other, and the difficult thing for me was trying to remember which one I was doing at whatever time. I'd kind of learnt them all, but then when I was playing it through, I was thinking, oh, which is it? Is it that one? Or is it this one? I couldn't remember which one it was. That's just me. I'm quite slow. So you're probably better at me than that. But keep practicing them. You'll be fine with them. They're just a bit tricky. Yeah, so just keep practicing them. So measure 33 then, we're starting on the C string at the 1st fret, which we've just achieved with that pull off, and then beat 2, and the rhythm here we're playing is 1, 2 and 3, 4 E under. So beat 2, we come up to the 6th fret and do a full bar with the 2nd finger on the A string at the 7th, this F sharp 7 chord, and then we play that full chord on beat 2. Then the and after beat 2, we're hitting the E string 9th, so we'll use the pinky for that. And then on beat 3, we'll go back to the 7th fret, which we're playing with the 2nd finger already. So probably take that pinky off when we go back to the A string on beat 3. Pinky off as we play that note there. And I would probably as well, actually, just to make the transitions a bit easier, because once we've played that note, we're coming down to the start of the fretboard to play this. Another one of these little tricky pull-off sections. So what I would do, on beat 2, we play that full bar. As I'm playing the E string 9th, I'll probably think about taking that bar off and then take the pinky off. As you play beat 3, think about this 1st finger and moving it down so that we're ready then on beat 4 to put it on the E string 2nd to do that pull-off section there. Yeah, so think about those transitions. If we stay in this position and then think, where am I next? E string second, that's really hard. If we're moving the first finger down to where it needs to be as we're playing it, yeah, think about that transition. Always think about what's coming next, because that'll help you speed things up a little bit and get that kind of steady flow through the piece as you're learning it. Always think about where the fingers are going next. Yeah, so as I'm playing that note on beat 3, you can see the bar's off, the pinky's gone, the first finger's on its way, ready to go to that point there. So that last little run for E and is E string second with the first finger, pull that off onto the open E, then we're going to go to the C string at the 3rd fret, and we'll use the 3rd finger for that, and then first finger goes onto the 1st fret behind that to receive the pull off on the A at the end there. And that will finish on beat 1 of measure 34 on the G string 4th fret. Okay, so that measure again, if we pick that first note, which normally we'd achieve with a pull off, but I'll pick it now, then we go, and then first note of measure 34. So from there, we're going to go into measure 34, which is the same rhythm as the one we just played. We just played in 1, 2 and 3 for E and once again. And it's the same sort of thing that we're doing. We're now just moving this chord down to the 5th fret, or 4th fret in terms of the bar, 5th fret in terms of the 2nd finger. So it's now an E7 chord, so beat 2 is that chord there. And it's what we're doing up here, but now we're doing it 2 frets lower. So it's the same thing again. So beat 2 is that chord, and after beat 2, pinky on at the 7th, but again, as you play that, take the bar off, then take the pinky off as you play that 5th fret note again on beat 3, and be bringing the hand down towards the start of the fretboard. Hasn't got as far to go this time, but we're going to be down at the 2nd fret, so then play on beat 4, E string open, another little run of 16th notes, C string second with the 2nd finger, pull off onto the 1st fret, and then 4th fret at the end of that measure. E open, C second, C first, G 4th. And that will finish off on the next measure, measure 35, with a pull off onto the 2nd fret. So those 2 measures again, and I'll finish on that note there, even though that's the start of the next measure, just again because it makes sense to complete that little run. It should sound like this. Okay, so let's have a go at playing those 2 measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. So on to the last 2 measures now, measures 35 and 36. They should sound like this. Okay, so that measure 35 is similar to the previous 2 measures. It's the same rhythm, 1, 2 and 3 for E and We're doing the same sort of thing, but just 2 frets even lower. So what we're going to do now, we're going to be at the 2nd fret, barring across, but actually beat 1 was just this single G string at the 2nd. We just pulled off from the 4th fret onto that 2nd fret. So just turn that 1st finger there into a bar across the full 2nd fret, and then add the 2nd finger onto the A string 3rd, and play that full chord on beat 2. Then at the end after beat 2, pinky on the 5th on the E string, and then back to the A string 3rd, sorry. Pinky comes off, bar can come off as well, just like the previous 2 measures. Because now we're going to do another little run of 16th notes, but this time we're doing C string second, pulled off onto the open C, and then G string 4th, so 3rd finger will take that, and then pull off onto the G string second, and then finish off into measure 36. Now beat 1 of measure 36 will be that open G. one just to practice in isolation, just to get that nice and quick, nice and smooth. So that measure on its own again, but with that first note of measure 36. Nice. And then at measure 36 is a little bit different. Rhythmically, we're playing 1, 2E and 3, 4. So we play open G on beat 1, and then for this 2E and, we're going to come up to this B chord where we have the C string at the 6th, E string at the 7th, and then A string at the 6th. And then play those notes separately. So C string on beat 2, E string on the E, and then A string on the and. And then straight after on beat 3, come to this E minor chord where we bar across the 7th fret and play those 3 strings together. And again, I use the 3rd finger there, but you could just use the 1st finger. I don't even know which I prefer. I tend to go with the 3rd, but that's just my preference. You can use either. So that's beat 3, let that ring for a beat, and then beat 4, take that off, and hit that open E string. Okay, so just that measure 36. Bit slower. 1, 2, E and 3. 4. Okay, so there's 2 measures through once again. Brilliant. So let's have a go at playing those 2 measures through together now. 2, 3, 4. So that's it, that's the whole thing. I hope you have loads of fun learning these 2 super Christmassy tunes. So until next time, take care, look after yourselves, and I will see you in the next video.
Alright guys, so this week's ukulele lesson was a ton of fun. These are 2 melodies that are just timeless. Everybody knows them and everybody loves them. They've got that power to put a smile on your face and really, really give you that holiday cheer. So guys, I wanted to give you a friendly reminder that if you did want to get the tabs to print off, keep for your records, that was available at this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for the song. Now also on that page were the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewers. So you can literally hit play, you can watch that tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars, the loop section, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed learning this tune, and we'll catch you in the next lesson. Take care.